If you're a parent, carer, grandparent, family member of an autistic child, then you probably already know that Christmas can be quite a challenging time and sometimes has the potential to be a complete nightmare. I like to think we've learnt a lot over the years and been able to assemble 10 tips to help other parents and family members through that tricky Christmas period with an autistic child. Hello folks and welcome to the first in a short series of videos all designed around being a parent of an autistic child around the Christmas period. Just in case you don't already know who we are, my name's Kevin Chapman. I'm a vlogger with a 15-year-old son called Andy. Andy's autistic and we've been daily vlogging our life as an autism family for the last 3 years or so. I'm also currently going through the autism diagnosis process for myself as well, although it is taking a while. So there is going to be a video a little later on in the series where we look at flipping this idea on its head and do some tips for autistic adults as well. But for today, we are focusing in on tips for parents, carers, grandparents, family members, family friends, on things that they need to be aware of or things that they could do to make Christmas a better experience for their autistic child. If that sounds like something that you would benefit from, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. Like I say, there are going to be a few more videos in this series and we've got over 1,000 videos worth of material on the channel as well. So there's lots of other stuff related to this topic. I'll link to a few of those videos down in the description below. And of course, don't forget to leave a nice big thumbs up on the video as well. But without further ado, let's get in to the first of our tips. So tip number 1 is to start planning as early as possible and to include your child in that planning process. You'll have seen in our living room, we have Andy's planning board, his date board. We've never really given it a name. It's basically a big calendar board where it sets out what he's going to be doing each day for the next 2, 3, sometimes up to 4 weeks if there's a big thing going on. And Christmas is one of those times where we do go 4 weeks in advance so that he knows when Christmas is, he knows when school finishes, and he knows where he's going to be and when. He knows what to expect. Advent calendars are also a really useful tool as part of this because obviously they allow you to count down towards when Christmas is or count up. I do sometimes think that I think it would be better for Andy if they started at 24 and worked backwards. I guess there's no reason why we couldn't do that other than the fact that it doesn't match up with the days anymore. But it does give a real visual representation of how far away Christmas is so he can prepare himself for it. Plus it builds in a little bit of a daily routine that he enjoys because he gets a little reward out of it. So that's pretty cool as well. But other things like social stories, visual calendars, we've got now a next book that we'll start to use a little bit more closer to the time. But it's all about including him in the planning and making sure that he's fully aware of what's going on, when, with who, how long it's going to take, so that when the big day comes, it's less of a shock. And one of the first parts of planning, as soon as we've made him aware Christmas is coming, and these days school usually make him aware long before we do, but once he knows Christmas is coming, we like to get the decorations up as soon as possible because it gives him time to acclimatise himself to them. He sort of runs hot and cold with Christmas decorations about whether or not he likes them. He does tend to like lights, but he doesn't really like them if they flash. He doesn't like huge change all in one go. But the key thing is to do your decorations in a way that suits your child. So try and include them in the process. Let them help with picking the decorations, putting the tree up, putting decorations up. Maybe do what we've done this year, kind of accidentally, but I think it's actually worked quite well, which is staggering putting the decorations up. So we put the tree up earlier in the week, the outside lights up a day or two later. We've got lights for inside that are going to go up. We've got ceiling decorations that are going to go up, and it's kind of a gradual process. So he's got time to get himself used to each new development as it comes in. And because he's getting involved in doing it as well, he's finding the change into Christmas decorations a lot more comfortable than it has been in previous years. And likewise, when you get to the other end after Christmas and things start to come down, we all have that feeling of, oh, doesn't it look bare in here after we take our Christmas decorations down? Well, that's a big, shocking change all in one go. So maybe remove them gradually as well and get to the point where it's not a whole massive shock all in one go. Also, on the topic of decorations, it's nice to maybe limit them to certain parts of the house and keep other parts of the house that remain unchanged, that he can then go to and sort of escape from Christmas for a little while if it does all get a little bit too much. Going back 10 years or so, before Anna and Andy moved in, we would decorate our entire house at Christmas. Our bedrooms would be decorated, the girls' rooms would be decorated. We don't really do any of that anymore because Partly the girls have grown out of it and aren't really that bothered about it, but also we've never decorated Andy's room because that's a room that stays the same all the time, and it's just a way to have kind of, okay, Christmas is happening over here, but if Christmas gets too much, I can come over here and it's not Christmas anymore and everything's back to normal. School can go one of two ways at this time of year, and we've experienced both ends of this in recent years. I mean, Andy's in a special school, so it's a little bit different for him because they are a little bit more accommodating to his needs. I imagine this is even more of a challenge in a mainstream school, but I would suggest talking to the school as early as possible and finding out what stuff is going on, what changes are going to happen. When's the Christmas fair? When's the Christmas assembly? Are they doing a Christmas jumper day? Everything that's different from normal routine. If things are going to change, we need to know about them as early as possible so we can start preparing Andy for that change. And also let the school know what your child's needs are going to be as part of that. So maybe just remind them, they should already know, but remind them that if you're abandoning the timetable for 3 days to rehearse for the school play, make Christmas cards, do nativity stuff, and have a Christmas fair, maybe that's a lot to do all in one go. Maybe have some element of normal put back in there, spread that stuff out a little bit, just so that it's not completely inundated with new and different stuff with bright lights and loud music. And there's a lot. Christmas is a lot, and it's important to firstly remind the school of what the needs are, but also if there is going to be something major happening, just find out what it is. So again, it can go on that date board or that calendar or that visual timetable or whatever you use. It can go on there well in advance. As soon as you know about it, that on 17th of December, that's when the school fair is. So you won't have normal lessons that day. So just on the calendar, just a reminder, school fair. So he knows it's coming. He knows what the school fair is. He hates it, but he'll know when it's coming. Now, we all know Christmas is a time for spending time with your family, going and visiting granny, having long lost uncles coming and stay over with you, and all that kind of stuff. You hang out with your family a lot over Christmas, and I am not saying don't do that. What I am suggesting is you might not want to do that all in one day, which there can be the temptation to do, to go and visit one set of parents on Christmas morning, go and visit a different set Christmas afternoon for dinner, have everyone over in the evening for board games and karaoke and shenanigans and whatever else you might want to do. And that sounds like a lot of fun, and that's very similar to what Christmas pre-Andy would have been for us. But we don't do things like that anymore because that's too much in one day for him. He wouldn't enjoy it. It's strange places, with strange people, doing strange activities, and it's too much different in one go. So spread it out a little bit over a few days. These days, our Christmas looks very different. You'll have seen it in the vlogs over the last couple of years, but we'll have Christmas morning at home, just the 5 of us. We'll then perhaps go to my dad's for Christmas dinner, but then we'll come back home and just be the 5 of us again after that. So the only out of the house, really out of the ordinary thing with different people is that 3-hour block where we're somewhere else having dinner, and it's a place he goes for dinner every couple of weeks anyway, so he's fairly used to it. He knows the people who are there. We'll still do get-togethers for the board games and the karaoke and the buffet foods, but we'll just spread them out over the course of the week. There might be something going on Christmas Day, something on New Year's Eve, something on Boxing Day, something in between. So you still have the opportunity to see everybody, but it just doesn't all have to happen at the same time. The Christmas period lasts like over a week. You've got from Christmas Eve realistically through to New Year's Day. And I know a lot of people do work in between, but I would suggest nobody's working all 8 days from Christmas Eve, or 9 days from Christmas Eve all the way through to New Year's Day. That's 8 days, isn't it? You're not working all day, every day on all 8 of those. And if you are, it's not an issue anyway, because you aren't going to see him at all. So just spread that stuff out between all those things. It makes it more likely that your kid's going to enjoy it, and also more likely that everyone else is going to enjoy it, because you're not having to deal with a child who's really struggling with something that's completely outside of the ordinary. It's also worth deciding for your family and your circumstances and your child whether it's better for you to go to family or family to come to you. And there's certainly pros and cons of each. Obviously, if you are at home and family come to visit you, then that allows your child to be in a familiar environment, be with their normal stuff, be able to escape to their bedroom if they want to. But it can be harder to put a hard stop on the end of things. What I mean is, if you go and visit family and you've been there 2 hours and they've had enough, then you can just leave. But it's harder to, okay, 2 hours, I can see that he's really struggling with this event now, we need to end this. It's really hard to say, guys, I know you've only been here a couple of hours, I know you're halfway through your dinner, but can you all go home now? So it's having these conversations with the rest of your family and working out what works best for you. Now, I've touched on this a lot throughout this video already, but just to really confirm that schedule and routine, if it's important to your child throughout the rest of the year, it's still important to them at Christmas. You can't abandon your schedules and your routines completely. We've talked about letting them know about any changes as early as possible through whatever methods you use, but try not to change too much in one go. For example, with Andy, he'll have his meals at the same times he usually does on Christmas Day, and he'll eat the same foods he normally does. So even though we'll probably have our Christmas dinner in the middle of the afternoon, and he'll sit at the table and join us for that, and he'll probably nibble on a few bits and pieces while he's doing it, but he'll still be sat at his table at 12 o'clock for his normal lunch. He'll be sat at his table at 5 o'clock for his normal tea. He'll be sat there at 8 o'clock in the morning for his normal breakfast. He'll still go to bed at his usual time, going through his normal bedtime routine. He'll still get up at his usual times. Anything that we can leave the same, we will leave the same, because it's one less thing to stress him out about. If we're already doing presents, which we'll get to in a minute, which can be stressful, and a big fancy meal with people who aren't usually there, and there's decorations on, and there's music playing, and there's lights blaring out from various places, just let him have his dinner in his normal place at his normal time. Pick your battles. But also, as part of scheduling and routines, it's a good idea to try and integrate Christmas into routines. The Advent calendar is a good example of that. If you're doing an Advent calendar as a way of counting down and preparing for Christmas approaching, then make it part of the breakfast routine every day, or the bedtime routine, or it happens at a set time in a certain way. So the act of Christmas and thinking about Christmas becomes part of the routine and becomes a comfortable thing. So there's ways to, yes, you have to keep schedules and routines as close to normal as possible, but there's also ways to drift Christmas over into those routines to kind of blur the lines a little bit and make it easier on everybody. Christmas shopping is a big thing. Now, we do all of our Christmas shopping online these days. I think a lot of families do. And I would say, if you do have an autistic child and they're not at school and there's no time where you can go shopping without them, for example, do it all online. I would say, as much as you possibly can, don't drag your kid around a shopping centre. They're horrible at the best of times with the bright lights and the loud music and all the people. But at Christmas, it's even worse because the music's louder, the lights are flashier, the people are more numerous and grumpier and busier, and it's horrible. It's just a horrible experience. Try to avoid putting them through it at all. But if you absolutely have to go Christmas shopping because you don't have access to the internet, how are you watching this video? But if you don't have access to the internet, or you know there's something you can only get by going to a shop, my favourite pork pie, for example, is only available at one butcher's shop, so I have to go out and get that. I'll go on my own, but that's because Andy can stay home with Anna. It might be that there's reasons why you might have to go out, but if that's the case, pick your times. Try and go when it's going to be less busy. Look to see if the shops that you're going to have an autism hour, because although the autism hour event officially takes place back in October, November time, I forget the actual date, there are a lot of shops. Morrison's is a good example of, I think, 9 till 10 every Saturday morning. Morrison's have a quiet hour where they don't play the music and they quieten the till noise, and there's a couple of other bits and pieces. I don't know all the details. We don't have a Morrison's particularly close by, so we don't go to it, but I know it exists, and I think that's awesome. If there's shops near you that you've got to go to, find out if they have quiet times. The Entertainer, the toy shop, is another one who, I think for them as well, it's every Saturday morning they have a quiet hour where same sort of things, lights will be dimmer, music will be quieter, and that's the perfect time to go. So they're the times you want to be going if you have to go at all. We've talked about family get-togethers and parties and things like that, and I'm not saying don't go to them. Absolutely go to them. Have a good time. But what I would say is, whether they're at your house or someone else's house or somewhere else entirely, try and make sure there's some kind of safe space where your child can escape to if it all gets a little bit too much for them. This is why it can sometimes be better to do this stuff at home, because they can just escape to their own bedroom and just chill out. But if you're at someone else's house, they'll probably have a spare bedroom or a room somewhere where they can go to. And this is, again, where educating family members comes in. Show them this video or have the conversation with them in advance. If little Johnny needs to go off upstairs for an hour, 20 minutes into this party, he's not being rude. It's not that he doesn't like you. It's not that he doesn't want to be here. It's just that this is all a bit much for him. And this is his way of allowing himself to stay a little bit longer by doing it in small little chunks and taking breaks when needed. So make sure there is somewhere available where he can go and have a break. It's a simple thing, but it can be the difference between staying throughout the length of a meal and having to go at just as you're finishing your prawn cocktail. Ah, good old Santa. I love Santa. I wouldn't say a bad thing about Father Christmas. Me and him are big buddies. However, you might want to just think about what you're saying about Santa to your child before you say it, because a lot of autistic children, a lot of autistic people can be quite literal in how they interpret what is said to them. And as much as Santa is awesome, the idea of a stranger breaking into your house in the middle of the night, judging whether you've been good or bad this year, and then leaving a surprise, you might hate surprises, and then leaving a surprise for you and then leaving again without waking you up, without you knowing they were there, that's pretty scary stuff. You might want to leave some of Santa's more controversial details out. I'm sure you can figure out for yourself the best ways to do this, but just, if you've never thought about it, just maybe spend a minute thinking. And this is probably one more for the grandparents, because I think if you're a parent of an autistic child, and I think that applies to a lot of these tips, you probably know a lot of this stuff already. You've figured it out for yourself. You've learned this through experience. But if you're an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a family friend, just be careful with what you say about Santa, because he can be pretty scary. I mentioned surprises just now and how surprises have the potential to be pretty unpleasant experiences, and that is definitely something that applies for Andy. We've seen it in some of our Christmas videos even that we've released over the last couple of years. If we give him a present that he didn't know he was getting, that he's not expecting, he'll open it, have a look at it, put it to one side, and never ever go back to it. It's not that he finds surprises particularly upsetting, but he just doesn't want things that he didn't already want in advance. He needs to make that decision that he wants it. He needs to build himself up and get excited about it. And the only presents that he actually enjoys are the ones that he knows he's getting. So this year, he knows everything he's getting. He's picked most of it out. He knows where it is in the house, the presents that he's getting. He knows he's getting a Family Fortunes board game. He knows he's getting a Nintendo Switch Lite. He's already seen them. He knows they're in our bedroom. He knows they'll be wrapped up on Christmas Day, but for some kids, they might not like wrapping. That's something to consider. But he knows what he's getting. He knows when he's getting them, and he's excited. And it means on Christmas Day, when we give him his presents, he'll be excited about them. It also means if we get him anything that he's not ready for, so anything outside of those two gifts, and we'll give him to them, you'll see in the Christmas Day present opening video when we make that if we hand him, I don't know, a t-shirt wrapped up, he'll take it and he'll say, Nintendo Switch, open it up, put it to one side, never touch it again, because all he wants is the things that he's expecting. So you need to again learn from experience and have this conversation with other family members and other people who might be getting presents, because it can really disappoint Granny if she tries really hard to get your kid a present that they'll really love, but then it's a surprise, and because of that they hate it. So it can be quite hard to explain to somebody why you need to show them the present in advance and explain and tell them what the present is in advance, and maybe not wrap the present. But if it's the difference between a present being loved and a present being hated, then we just have to make some accommodations around surprises and and just the idea of gifts in general. And then lastly, opening presents itself. This has been one of the things that we've had the most comments about on our Christmas opening videos that we've done in recent years, about how Andy's not really engaged in the process and how we're all opening presents and he's kind of just sat there not interested, maybe on his DS, maybe on his iPad. And it's because he's not interested. He doesn't care. Opening presents, he's not really bothered by it. He's kind of learned since we've been doing the vlog that if you get a present, you go, oh, present. And that's not a spontaneous reaction. That's a learned behavior. He sees a present. He goes, oh, present, opens it up and goes, wow, even if he doesn't like it. And then if he likes it, he'll start using it straight away. And if he doesn't, it'll go to one side. But even if it's something he hates, it will still get, oh, present and wow, every time. Because he knows that's what you do when you're opening presents. But opening presents all in one go and 10 presents in a row, again, it's too overwhelming. It's too much. It might be an idea to maybe spread the presents out over the course of the day, maybe spread the presents out over a couple of days. We know that Andy's a big fan of pajamas. He wears them all the time. So Christmas Eve every year, we get a present. All 5 of us get a present, some pajamas, and we open them up and it's some new pajamas and it's something that he likes. He knows he gets pajamas on Christmas Eve and it's a nice present that he'll appreciate getting. So he gets it early, and then we'll do his main present on Christmas Day morning. And then he might open his next thing 2 or 3 hours later. He might not open them at the same time as everybody else, because he's got to process the fact that he's got this one new thing first, and then when he's ready for something else, he might go back for something else. And sometimes we've had presents wrapped for a couple of days after Christmas, but it's better for him to open them in his own time and when he actually wants them, rather than just going through the process of opening a big pile of presents just for the Instagram pic and it being a load of tat that he doesn't want, he's never going to use, and ends up in a charity shop by May, which has happened in previous years. And I think the bottom line for that one, and all of the tips that I've given, a lot of this stuff, like I say, if you're a parent of someone with autism or you've got autism yourself, a lot of this stuff probably seems fairly obvious. I don't think we've done any hugely groundbreaking tips here, but what we have done is covered the basics of this is the stuff that you should be thinking about in order to make Christmas a fun experience for every member of the family. I'm not saying every one of these tips applies to every person with autism, but it's something to think about, and it's certainly something to be having a conversation with other family members about and other people involved. Anyone who's going to be there at Christmas, send them this video just so they have an idea of the things to be aware of. And if you don't want to send them a video because you know they won't read it because they're 90 and they don't do YouTube, there's a link that I've put on every one of the little title screens. It's also down in the description for the National Autistic Society website, National Autistic Society, to their website, where they've got a whole section on Christmas which covers off a lot of this stuff. A lot of these tips were put together in conjunction with the stuff that they've developed over the years as well, and we've kind of taken our experiences and their experiences and mushed it all together into this video. But they've got a lot of different leaflets and things that you can print out, you can send the links to. There's stuff for parents, for carers, for Christmas party tips. There's stuff specific to grandparents and more distant family members who might not know your child as well. There's stuff for autistic adults on there. It's a really good resource. If you've got any further stuff that you want to find out, you want to know more, it's a really good place to start. And also use the comments section down below to let me know your tips for Christmas. Like I say, this is the first in a mini series of sort of autism at Christmas videos. If I need to do a part 2 of tips, I'll do a part 2 on tips. If we get another 10 good tips down in the comments below, I'll absolutely do another video. But the next one in this little series is going to be a Christmas gift guide for autistic children. I've also got some stuff in mind for autistic adults as well. So let me know what stuff you'd like to see in this little mini Autism at Christmas series. But hopefully you have got something out of this video. If you have, please make sure you leave a thumbs up on there for me. It really does help out the video, help out the channel. Subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this. Plus, of course, our family vlogs where you can see all of this stuff acting out in real time and see how our Christmas goes this year. And thank you very much for watching.